Student Success, Built by Design, expanding the human potential for today's students. Welcome to Student Success, Built by Design. In this podcast, we explore the fundamental question of how the built environment impacts student success. We will showcase specific design and build achievements of the San Diego Community College District's $3.5 billion bond measure HH, whose goal is to further our education and student success mission by designing and constructing learning environments that don't simply host students, but elevate them, academically, personally, and socially. Therefore, we design with a clear purpose and build with mission. Welcome back to our podcast on student success, built by design. Today, we're discussing self-actualization needs. We'll be diving deeper into student success that we discussed in our fourth episode. We'll be engaging our panel on the fifth layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization of potential, growth, and experience through academic, artistic, and athletic endeavors. We'll explore the design of the built environment and how it can impact the student experience and their success. So today I wanted to welcome back Dr. Joel Peterson, San Diego Community College District Vice Chancellor and Executive Operations Officer, Jennifer Gibb, Van Pelt Construction Services Vice President, Business Development, Andrea Stalker, PBK Architects, Principal and Director of Higher Education, and Jeff Jouts, myself, PBK Architects, Principal and Director of Design and Educational Planning. So today we're getting into kind of an intense subject, and so this is going to be really interesting for us and our panel. And so we're going to be diving into kind of the self-actualization needs, which are kind of it is the highest level for Maslow. And so I just want to start out with Dr. Peterson. Some of your ideas. Give us a start of what are the kind of parameters that we want to talk about? How are they relevant to what we're talking about student success at this high level of Maslow's needs?
Well, this is a fascinating topic I think that we're going to be diving into, and a pretty complex one. Self-actualization is kind of a vague term. I think most of the other terms we've been talking about to this point have been pretty self-evident. Um, One of the key things that we should keep in mind, though, is that the widely accepted theory or principle that Maslow put forward is that one that human beings have multiple needs above and beyond what is minimally required physiologically. Secondly, that these needs have a hierarchy, meaning that if you do not meet the needs at the lower level, that the needs at the next higher level or above that become unnecessary or unattainable. As an example, if you are not getting enough air, you're really not going to be that worried about safety and security or warmth or other things such as self-actualization.
Hmm.
Um, so what it says though is that once you meet one layer, then the human uh, individual that we are designed and built and that we operate in such a way that we need and crave that next level up, and that should we not have that. So it comes down to is this highest level of self-actualization, which includes many kind of components, um, things like mastery and things like appreciation of beauty, of awe, of pinnacle experiences. These type of things that are relatively vague and hard to define. But what it says is we all have heard about ostensibly very successful and apparently on the outside, fully um, all of their needs being met. We read about, say, famous people who are wealthy, who seem to be very successful, and then later through either some self-harm or through some biography that they write, we learn that they actually felt that they had no purpose, that their life had no meaning, that they felt they were empty, that they felt they couldn't feel anything, that they were seeking meaning and feeling and connection in their life, even though they had all the money, all the wealth, all the fame, all the success and profession, that they looked like that they had, secure family, they had all these kinds of things, yet somehow that is not enough. This is what self-actualization is talking about, is those fundamental things of finding meaning, finding connection, finding a sense of awe, and finding those pinnacle experiences that make you feel like that life itself is fundamentally worth it. So that's sort of what we're dealing with and saying, how then does the designed and built environment help support that? Or maybe better yet, is how do we work not to hinder that?
That's perfect. And as we start to talk about that influence of the built environment and the physical aspects, it's really kind of fascinating the impacts that it can make. And so I think the next question for Andrea, as we uncover, the importance of these elements of self-actualization, talking about the potential and the growth, and what Dr. Peterson's talked about this experience. What are some of the thoughts on how the built-in environment can actually influence that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this and how we tie it back to self-actualization, and that may be too complicated for me as an architect. But I was thinking it more through our lens of student success and how do we understand self-actualization really being those three components that we define student success as, right? Sort of academic, social, and personal. And that when you have all three of those, that success helps us lead to that sense of self-actualization or purpose or meaning that you like it through just one of them, you find something lacking. Like if you could be all academically successful, but if you don't have a social network or community, or if you don't have a healthy mental health or well-being, so that tripod, and I think as we've been talking, the built environment can support that tripod at each layer, right? And so we can support academic success through learning environments, especially ones that help support the practice of skills, like a culinary teaching lab or a nursing sim lab. But the built environment can support socialization by creating a sense of belonging or fostering community and helping foster relationships. And then maybe most relevant to self-actualization and this sort of personal or mental health or well-being, that architecture at its most inspirational, can create in people like a sense of awe or beauty, or sometimes, even a sense of peace or reflection. Um, but those are just things that we hope that it does on its best days, right? But then to Dr. Peterson's point, that at its worst days, that it's not hindering all those things that we want students to be experiencing, that it's connection and it's the connection to people, connection to the natural environment, to beauty of those pieces. Yep.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's a great point. When you have these kind of moments where the environment is actually encapsulating an event of some kind, sometimes it's ephemeral. Where you feel inspired or you feel like you're part of one. Um, and when we're talking about some of that, sometimes it's helpful that it's in maybe in a large group, maybe not, but the sense of community, a shared experience. So Jennifer, I was wondering, as far as that kind of perspective, how do we bring that kinda home with some of the, like, a typical event where like a sporting event or, where you have this audience kind of, um, expression?
Well,
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, that's great because I think some of the built spaces that we have, like a performing arts center, right? That space, there's two experiences you get. One from the person performing, right, in the space and what they're getting and how that's enhancing their life experience and their dreams and their visions and the moment that they're experiencing on the stage and the lights shining on them. And then the space of the audience watching them, right? And just the awe and just I don't know, makes me give me chills thinking about being up there. I'm not a performer, but for them, I'm excited. And that self-actualization is really important from that space and looking out. And then the other view from the audience looking in and like actually experiencing that performance and experiencing coming that night, getting dressed up, watching their sibling or, loved one on stage performing and being proud of them, they can maybe experience that in a park or, in their backyard, but the awe and just the built environment really can draw on your feelings in that moment. And then, as maybe you're young and it's a sibling up there and you're watching them and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of my sister or brother or my mom or dad up there, right? Doing the performance. That feeling is something that is brought on and enhanced by the space. Same can go for athletic complexes, as well. Um, the athlete in that space, performing at their highest peak in a space that's just built with the light shining down on them and the right athletic equipment and or environment. And then the same for the audience, watching that and just like getting geared up and having a sense of pride for their community, their team, going out there and just, you know, I I go to sports events all the time, and there's a different feeling than watching it in your home on TV or at your neighbor's house. So I think the built space that we're providing really does provide that sense of community and draws everyone together. And then that helps us, you know.
Jennifer makes a really interesting and I think important point, that this self-actualization really is one of the key pinnacle components. And we actually saw this. We said, what happens if we were to go ahead and just allow someone to have that pinnacle of performance as an athlete or a musician, but not in an interactive environment, not where there was a audience that was, going ahead and interacting. Well, we did that experiment. It was called the pandemic. And so, when people were doing these performances and they tried at first they realized there was some kind of an issue. So then they tried to create these artificial environments where they put little screens and sort of had all
Hmm.
these
Yeah.
people, but nowhere did anyone think that that even came close to replicating. What it really says is that, it underscores and probably supports very tactily Maslow's theory that we are these beings that have these needs, and that many of these things are very, very socially interconnected. That we end up generating these things, and so um, to Jennifer's point, where she's saying yes, you sort of to get the best athletic or the best artistic performance, you almost have to also have the best audience performance. That the one goes with the other. If you have an audience that's just sitting there not doing anything, or you don't even have an audience. I don't know that most of the track and field records were done when there's no one in the stands, or that the absolute best kinds of concerts that we talk about, if Simon and Garfunkel had given their concert, in Central Park and there was nobody there, just a camera recording them, I don't know that they would have come across quite as well. Their experience as musicians, I think, would have been much more hollow. That sense of self-actualization, that sense of a pinnacle of awe and of truly having meaning probably would not have been there. It would have felt kind of empty. Why am I doing this? Who am I singing for? Why do I expend this effort, just for this whole kind of thing to put some numbers on a board versus what I'm getting from, an audience? And same thing. Why am I sitting here with 60,000 people when I can't even see anything that's down on the stage? So it really does say that we create this built environment and that it does allow that self-actualization to happen. To Andrew's point, I thought, Andrew, you made a very good thing about that. It doesn't always have to be in large groups, but it can also be in small or solitary. When you think of the built environment of, let's say, Arlington National Cemetery, just the row upon row upon row upon row of these repetitive white crosses, and you cannot help but realize what each one represents, the life that was there, the person. You think of then who you are. And again, it gives that sense of awe and that sense of, wow, they gave their purpose so that I may find mine. So we can see that the built environment, both internal, fully engineered and artificial, and those that are married to a natural environment are truly powerful resonators and enablers of the self-actualization pinnacle human experience.
And I love that architecture can do both, right? It can do the individual and it it can connect us to nature in sometimes ways more profound than even if we're just out in it, but I don't know, framing it or giving it an essence that somehow lifts us up even higher and then also connects us. So as you were talking, Dr. Peterson, about celebration, even the idea of going to community college and why we celebrate graduations, right? Like it's, just getting the certificate or the AA or like it's not enough. We want to come in as a group and say, hey, we're proud of you. And this is a moment to celebrate. And you have realized something here and you've grown and you've had an experience, and that we need campuses and places to do that, to come together in community and to then celebrate the students in their success, right?
I think that's that
Mhm.
public witness, that we're in this together, we're connected. And I think that's one of the great things about San Diego Community College District is that, with these kind of facilities that be able to talk about these ideas that why are we connected together? Why is it important? And how do we kind of build on that? Or like Dr. Peterson was talking about, how do we remove obstacles that really help us to focus on those kind of things? I kind of wonder how much is the environment where, you have the artist or the athlete, and then we come around with the audience. What are the key triggers or elements that go into that? As we dig deeper into this, so like Andrew, you're talking about some of these physical elements. How do we trigger like the imagination? Is it something in the nature? Is it something in the event? Is it physical? Are there specific things that we can kind of look to?
Ooh, the great question of like, should the building be a blank canvas or something that has content and a message and to be a point of inspiration? And I think there's a time and place for both. And I think, but at a community college, I think it is very relevant to say like architecture can inspire, and it should have a message, right? It should have a message to the students that you belong here, that you are respected. I I think it can highlight those that have gone before, right? So to highlight alums that have been successful, or even to highlight the values of the community college district. They value sustainability and stewardship of resources and all of those things that say uh, who we are, right? And are embodied in this message of a building. And that can inspire students then on to levels of creativity, or to witness a problem and want to solve it, right? To tackle it, to say, oh, this is what someone did before me. Well, I want to take it to the next level and do the next thing. And that's what a building can inspire students to do.
Yes, so
Um,
it's almost a sense of, kind of a legacy connection, and you're building on success. Um,
right.
eh, Trying to bring this kind of home, I was wondering, Jennifer, what are some maybe practical applications where we've kind of seen this kinda in the world or around us? Sometimes we're transported beyond these kind of ideas, or we're in a place and we just sense like something else. We're having the experience.
Absolutely. I mean, I have kids, so I think one of the first ones is like Disneyland. I mean, have you ever gone to Disneyland and not felt like awe, right? You feel every moment, and your kids are just so excited, and you're like, as a parent, you're like, oh, okay, they're running off, they're gonna get, kidnapped, and then you're like, I'm in the happiest place on the earth. Let's let them have fun and eat candy until they can't, eat anymore. And just the awe of I have a daughter, and I remember when all the princesses and my son, and they're just experience every moment, every touch, every aspect of the park is a new experience, and you're walking into you know, all the different lands, and just from the ride to the food to the air to the smells you have that you're capturing, and you're experiencing um, a different environment and kind of a fantasy, right? Of you having that, and that's something that lives in you. And so I think Disney's great at capturing the moment and the person and the vision of the imagination. You can, when you go on vacation, right? And you like go to Hawaii and you're just living your best life on the beach and experiencing an awe and the surrounding of the resort, and the smell and the ocean and all of those things. That's a natural environment, right? And how you're able to take that in and I don't know, every time I go to Hawaii, I'm like, how could I live here? How could I make this work? Right. It's just, fun being on vacation. And then you come back and you take a little bit of that with you, that experience that you had. I think even when we go to places, that are familiar, as well, like just spending time with your family, or like you were saying, in these built environments, bringing your family to those, the sense of pride that you had growing up and, playing football in your backyard. And then you went to high school and now you're at your college experiencing that. Those athletic components, your family is proud of you. They've seen you and watched you grow, or you've experienced it for your own children. And I think that that's important. There's a lot of things in our daily life that we experience and are able to capture more because of the environment in which we're experiencing them in. And I think what's really great about Measure HH is that there's so many wonderful projects that are enhancing the spaces that we have, that are making it even better, right, than what we had before. And so the sense of pride that past graduates had when they were there, we're leaning into that and moving that forward, like Andrea and Jeff, you were saying. So there's just so much that a building can do, and the space around it, and it's pretty amazing. That's why we love it, right?
Yeah, this is great. I mean, as we're talking about kind of these aspirational ideas that a student stepping into, I mean, it's kind of a reality. I mean, at the community college as a student, you're stepping into possibly a new identity of taking on a role that maybe is something new for them or new for their family. And so it's going to like stepping into something and they're the creator of something. I was wondering, Dr. Peterson, can you expand a little bit more on that? You have such a passion for the students and what they're doing, where they're coming from, and where they're going, that kind of experience is really a core to what you've been talking about.
When you think of what we've been trying to do as a built environment to meet all the different levels, again, um, first and foremost, we're making sure that to enable self actualization, we are ensuring that we're meeting, again, the physiological needs, the safety, security, shelter needs, the socialization of the belonging, and a sense of acceptance, and then a sense of that component where you need to also have a sense of mastery and capability. And what it feels like all of us are saying in some ways is that the built environment may not be the thing that gives rise to that sense, that self-actualization that gives that pinnacle experience, but that is going to be inside of the individual, but then most likely on an interactive basis in connection with one or more other individuals that they have. And so it feels like that what's incumbent on us is to ensure that we have very successfully and integratively and seamlessly met all these other supporting needs below self actualization. And then we design and create spaces that uh, enable but will not cause in and of themselves this self actualization. This example we talked about, say, in performing arts or at sports stadiums, we can enable that. And we know that the best kind of sports arena or a performing arts one is when people say there's no bad seat in the house. When you can be in any seat and you still feel connected to that athlete, that performer, that team, those musicians, that orchestra that's there, that you feel you can see enough of them, you feel you could reach out and touch them. Those are the kind of successful spaces, but we've also been in those spaces where it was just kind of put together mainly to just cram as many humans as possible and maybe, be able to um, make a profit for attendance kind of thing, or that they try to do too many things in one space. We're gonna make it be a hockey stadium and a basketball stadium, and we can do concerts, and we'll have volleyball matches there, and we're going to have this kind of thing. And each one of those things end up feeling a little bit short. And those are the times I think when we've also all experienced where you've been at an event where you were looking forward to connecting, a concert or some other event or a speaker that you were looking to go to. And instead you felt alone in the crowd. You didn't feel connected. You felt like you were kind of there and you're going, this is it? And who are all these people that I'm surrounded by? Um, and to me, that is probably a combination of many things, but that is a failure of self-actualization. The fact that we've all experienced that, I think helps us understand then what self-actualization then is when we're not alone in the crowd, but when we're there and we feel connected and we can't help ourselves but jump up to our feet, not because everyone else is doing it, but because we all felt the same thing at the same time that motivated us to jump with excitement, rather than sitting there waiting to see who stood up and then you don't want to be left out, so you get up.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that I think, for Jeff, you and Andrea, the design part, that's very tricky. And then we've all seen it too, when maybe a design should have been something, but then when you tried to go ahead and went into the buildability side of it, and it got poorly executed, and you found that you know the materials and so forth just weren't quite there, and you end up with something that looks really clunky, and it kind of completely takes away, and again can create that alone in a crowd feeling or sense of meaninglessness. So anyway, this is, again, it's a fascinating topic. Would just warn us that, again, the best way to probably help this is to execute really well and flawlessly and seamlessly on all these foundational layers that Maslow talks about. And then if we can even come close to enabling that self-actualization sphere, my sense is that, young people, students who are seeking their, next steps in their life are going to be finding opportunities to have those experiences.
So I have to ask, um, what to bring this home for our audience, is there an example, an experience that you've had in some level of kind of this, where you've sensed this, or you've been in an environment where something locked in, something connected? So I'll start with the story. So I was in music performance before architecture, and so starting composition, all this kind of thing. So I was really nervous, and it was this big thing. It was Performing Arts Center, and they got all these people and professors and all this, and but everything was in place. We had great acoustics, the lighting, everything coming together, and then coming out, and there was a moment where I just stepped into the composer. I was thinking of how he wrote it, and it gave me like a different, it wasn't me, and it was kind of cool. Then I played through the piece, and it was a Bach piece, actually a marimba, and something happened. It just kind of took over, and it wasn't so much me as it. I recognized it was a dance, and people told me later that I was dancing. I am not dancing. But I was just in it, and it was kind of a cool moment whenever it came all the technical parts, all the social parts, the connectedness with the people who trained me to get there, not wanting to let them down. But it was kind of a cool moment when it's like, "That was good." And it was for me, that was kind of one of those self-actualization where I didn't have before because all of it came together.
Yeah, we were doing so a few years ago, and I was back at one of my projects, which was the University of North Dakota School of Medicine and Health Sciences, and we went back a year later, and we did the post-occupancy evaluation, and that process was designing that building was so fun. We worked so closely with the faculty and the staff on it that it was like we became friends with them, and that's always such a wonderful experience. And so I walked in, one of the faculty waved me into her classroom, like, while class was going on. I was like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna intrude." "No, no, come in, come in." And she stopped her whole class to tell all of those, like, occupational therapy students, "This is the architect that designed the building." And they just started clapping. Uh, and I was like, "Oh, man, that was a wonderful experience," but what I loved about it is they were doing that because they loved the building. Yeah. And they came up afterwards and told us how much pride they had in coming to that building and, like, how much
Wow.
they loved being in that building and the spaces, and so, for me, the pinnacle moment was not the design itself, but that we had served those students so well, and that they appreciated it so much.
Mine is very similar to yours, Andrea, but it's for littles. I got the chance to work on this early childhood education center. I I started from inception of like, we have a dream, right? And they had no funding, and then we built it, designed it, built it. Actually, Jeff and I worked on it together,
Oh, yeah.
and
Lemon Grove. Hmm.
yeah, and I think my moment of, it wasn't necessarily, I guess it's the things we do behind the scenes. I don't need a clap. I don't need anyone to know I, helped make this come to fruition. But seeing those kids on the first day, just saying like, this is for me, like this space. And I think some of our students within San Diego Community College experience that same opportunity as well, right? I'm lucky at a community college. I have the privilege of going to a space that really not only cares about my academics, but the space in which I'm learning. And I think th- the the fact that we're all talking here and bringing these ideas forward and having thoughts about them um, will pay tenfold in the future to the students that we're serving. So that's really, I just love what we do every day.
Nice.
I think one of my moments where I had that sort of sense of pinnacle element, a sense of where of that there was a limitless future horizon. I was in my first year at University of Virginia, and the core of the campus, we call it the grounds, is the original university that Thomas Jefferson designed, architected, and then uh, built in 1819. And and it was the golden hour, that sort of 5:30 p.m. and the sun was just coming there. And I came out of what's called Old Cabell Hall, which was the at the one end of the lawn looking straight towards the rotunda, which is a one-third kind of red brick and white column replica of it's the uh, is it the Parthenon or Pantheon? Pantheon in Rome. Um, and it's the Pantheon in Rome has the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome,
Hmm.
which is amazing.
Oculus.
But it just, with all the white columns going down the colonnade, with this green lawn, and it just struck me the incredible beauty of it, and that it all existed here for me, and that
Yeah.
Mm.
I was so
Mhm.
fortunate to be one of the few who have ever seen this, but then am seeing it as what it was designed and existed for, which was people like me to
Yeah.
launch their futures and to launch the expansion of their horizons. And to think that this was all done by, and I was connected to somebody like Thomas Jefferson, that I'm looking at something that was in his mind, that through his hand got created into tangible brick and mortar, and that here it existed doing what it was designed for, and it was doing that for me. And at that moment, I just remember just being swept with this complete sense of gratitude, limitless possibilities of the future, and just being in awe of the beauty that I was seeing in front of me and all around me. So, um, you don't always get that, and you keep it's like a drug. You keep, looking for that next hit on it. It's very rare, but so I know absolutely that the human created, conceived, and then manifested through lines and squiggles and things that we call designs and construction documents and executed by craftsmen and craftspeople and that build it up into the physical environment and then maintained and operated and then programmed with people in it. It can and does every day, I'm sure, that there are people having my moment again and again throughout, hopefully, the colleges in my district and also in so many other institutions that we've all been involved with.
Well, this has been great. I think it was nice that personal touch, and we're kind of finishing up kind of a phase of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it was great to get that personal perspective and helping our audience understand as well. So I just want to thank our guests, Dr. Peterson, Andrea, and Jennifer, for joining today. And in our next session of Student Success Built by Design, we'll be examining the performing and visual art projects and how they meet the goals of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We'll be exploring project case studies and how these goals are impacting the built environment. So it all leads to student success. Thank you for everyone being here. Thank you for everyone joining us online. And remember, student success is built by design. Thanks for joining our podcast, Student Success Built by Design. This series is brought to you by the San Diego Community College District and its Measure HH Bond program, whose goal is to further its education and student success mission. We'll see you next time. Measure HH is a $3.5 billion voter-approved capital improvement bond program at the San Diego Community College District, transforming its 10 campuses, which are housed in 4 separate colleges that collectively enroll 90,000 students annually. Measure HH will impact nearly 1 million students in its first 10 years,